There's a lot going on in the news this week regarding a whole lot of new countries that are joining Brics and their move to establish a new asset-backed reserve currency to replace the petrodollar. Remember that the petrodollar is nothing more than a debt instrument. In other words, nothing tangible changes hands. All that happens is that one party presents a promissory note, debt, which they state will be paid at a later date. So in other words, if one country wants to buy oil or silver or gold from another country, they give them the petrodollar, which is just money created out of thin air. There is no transfer of value at all on the part of the country who pays in the petrodollar. Guys, how we fell for this fraud for so long is almost unfathomable. It's old news that Saudi Arabia has joined Brics, but this is very significant as Saudi Arabia is one of the largest suppliers of oil internationally. But what makes this really significant is the fact that Saudi Arabia was a pivotal part of the bank gangsters' plans in 1971. It was their acceptance of the protection of the USA military in exchange for only selling their oil using the petrodollar, which manipulated most countries around the world to go along with the petrodollar as the world reserve currency. There are a number of new players also joining Brics, and their plans to create a new asset-backed reserve currency to replace that criminal petrodollar. Guys, these countries are Turkey, Egypt, Algeria, Argentina, Iran. The requests, or should I rather say their request for membership by these 5 states is very significant, as they can all see the writing on the wall as more and more countries move away from the petrodollar, which is backed by debt or nothing, towards that asset-backed currency where all countries will be forced to exchange real value for real value in the future. They'll no longer be exchanging their tangible assets, things like oil, gold, copper, etc., for debt, as is the case when you pay with petrodollar, but instead they're going to be changing an asset-backed currency for another tangible asset. This will effectively bring back the barter system, albeit a very, very sophisticated one. Another massive topic in the news at the moment is the war in the Ukraine, where, guys, I'm not sure that you're aware of this, but Russia's actually liberating the people of the Ukraine from the clutches of the bank gangsters who conducted a really crazy Soros-led color revolution in 2014, in which they overthrew the democratically elected government at the time in the Ukraine. Since 2014, the bank gangsters have been engaged in the most nefarious crimes against the Ukrainian people. I've placed a very comprehensive document in the comments below detailing just some of those horrific crimes that I guess we can call them the Ukrainian Nazis, have committed against humanity. Ukraine is one of the last strongholds of the bank gangsters or the deep state. Ukraine, let's just do some background, right? So Ukraine is the same country, Khazaria, which the Khazarian mafia inhabited long before they were chased out by the Tsar of Russia because of their satanic practices where they used to torture children and then sacrifice them to Moloch. Absolutely ridiculous. In fact, as David Rockefeller himself said, if or when Ukraine falls, the bank gangsters' new world order dies with it, which is great news for the rest of us, guys. So despite the Russians using incredible surgical strikes as far as possible to remove biolabs, child trafficking facilities, and other military installations, guys, with the aim of reducing collateral damage as possible. Remember, they're liberators. The Ukrainian Nazis, guys, despite all of this, are losing ground daily, and their imminent surrender, guys, is on the cards. From the info that I have to hand, it appears that a secret deal was reached between the Russian and the UK governments, where it was agreed that the war in the Ukraine, guys, will start to wind down. A clear indicator that an agreement has been reached regarding Ukraine is the resumption of Russia sending oil to Germany via the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. It appears, guys, that the agreement reached is also way bigger than merely only the Ukrainian issue, as I believe it includes an agreement around the 5 I's, that spy networks, the spy networks from the USA, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. This agreement, guys, will see the complete overhaul of these criminal spy organizations completely. As you can imagine, this is huge and one of the key issues which has been delaying the public announcements about things like Jasara, the official overturning of the fraudulent 2020 presidential election, etc. So the removal of this massive obstacle should see things start to accelerate dramatically, and we should start to see an increase in the public revelations about what's really going on in the world. This will offer a refreshing new perspective other than the propaganda presented by the mainstream media. We believe that there's also going to be a massive increase in the number of whistleblowers who are going to start to come forward, where they're going to start revealing truth about what's really going on. Not the lies and the propaganda that's been fed to us by the mainstream media, but the real truth. We believe that these whistleblowers will now start to be featured on the mainstream media, which is fantastic news, because that means the people still under mind control are going to start seeing the truth. The bank gangsters' last-ditch attempt to stop the inevitable, guys, is the attempt to once again impose medical martial law on the planet using the so-called monkeypox as the formula. We believe, guys, that this attempt will fail, as it's becoming common knowledge, guys, that monkeypox is nothing more than the side effects of the poisonous jab or bioweapon. These despots are growing so desperate every day that they've now raided. I mean, they've gone to this level where they've actually raided. The FBI has raided President Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago. Guys, remember that President Trump has access to looking glass type technology that looks into the future. It's time travel type technology. So he was well aware of these plans long before they occurred. So whatever they're going to find, whatever the FBI is going to find, is exactly what Donald Trump and the White Hats wanted them to find. And with the criminal Biden now testing positive for the non-existent COVID virus for the second time, and the actor or clone that's pretending to be Biden showing significant signs of dementia, it's very likely, guys, that a new president's going to emerge very soon. And as you know, Kamala Harris is not eligible because she's not a nationalized citizen. So who will it be? Could it be Newsom, who I believe has already been replaced with a clone, or could it be Pelosi? This is the hypothesis that I have, guys. Is it not a perfect time for all states to recall their electors and for the rightful president to emerge, namely Donald Trump? It's a possibility. But I'm also not certain that every negative which needs to happen under the Biden regime has already occurred, right? These are things like the collapse of the stock exchange, the implosion of the US or petrodollar, and where inflation is going to rise into double or even triple digits. So, as none of these things have occurred in the public domain yet, they have occurred, but not in the public domain, it may not yet be time for President Trump to return, guys, hence my uncertainty. However, as soon as President Trump does return, all the good stuff is going to start to happen, namely the official announcement of Jasara, the announcement of new elections worldwide 120 days later, the end of taxes in their current criminal format, the cancellation of all currency or fiat currency debt, etc., etc. Guys, this is very important to remember. Even if someone does replace Biden, remember, it's of absolutely no consequences at all, as the corporation of the USA is bankrupt. And as such, he's the president of absolutely nothing. The real 19th president of the Republic has always been Donald Trump, all along. And why is that? So unlike all the presidents before him, Donald Trump was inaugurated as the 45th president of the USA Corporation and the 19th president of the USA Republic on the 20th of January 2017. And as he never conceded to Biden, he remains and has always been the 19th president of the USA Republic. Let's talk about Taiwan for a moment. Taiwan and China, though, I must admit, they offer some interesting challenges, I guess like the rest of the world. Xi Jinping, although he appears to be the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, which has gradually been defeated in China, it appears, guys, that he's actually been working with Putin, Modi, and Trump and a number of other world leaders in the background, who these guys are all collectively working in the background to overthrow the bank gangsters. Thank heavens. As with most countries around the world, guys, China has both a deep state element, and deep state element being the CCP, and an element working to end the reign of the bank gangsters. In China, there's still small clusters where the CCP is 100% in control, but there are also other clusters where the CCP has been removed completely. So what this does is it makes describing what's going on in China and Taiwan pretty complex, as there are regions where the white dragons are in complete control, where Taiwan and China are cooperating completely. And then there's also regions where the CCP is in control, where they're trying to start a war with Taiwan. So it is a little bit challenging to explain. The white dragons have already reached an agreement with Taiwan, where Taiwan has agreed to rejoin China. The only reason that Taiwan ever left China in the first place was because the CCP and their draconian criminal way of ruling their people. Even Russia now is stating that they're in support of the people of China. They specifically do not mention the CCP at all. There's also a deep state element still in positions of authority in Taiwan, unfortunately. When combined with a small area still under CCP control in China, makes for a very interesting set of challenges around Taiwan. Let me try to explain to you how I see the Taiwan situation unfolding. The deep state elements in America are working with the CCP elements in China and the deep state elements in Taiwan. All of these deep state elements are trying desperately to create a war between China and Taiwan. However, don't believe that they're going to succeed, as although they hold, or should I rather say, they still hold positions of power, they completely lack any support from the people. Guys, I think there may even be a false flag event where we might be told that there's a nuclear threat out there. This can never, ever happen. It can only ever be a threat, as the benevolent non-terrestrials can never allow nuclear weapons to be used on Earth. Guys, as when they explode, they create devastating negative effects throughout the multiverse. It appears that the military has dissolved the government in the UK, and that despite the fact that it hasn't been made public yet, I believe that the military is in complete control in both the UK and the USA. Fantastic things are happening. In closing, let me just remind you that the petrodollar was the bank gangsters' final piece of control, because remember, he who controls the money controls the world. And they then got the ability, when they managed to create the petrodollar, they got the ability to manufacture money out of thin air, as much money as they needed, which gave them a massive unfair advantage. But that's all been reversed. The US military was built into an absolutely devastating machine, because they are, or were, the enforcement arm of the deep state or the bank gangsters. And so whenever a state stepped out of line, the US military would step in and discipline those countries. So all countries, including China, Russia, every country around the world, lived in fear of the US military. Because of the petrodollar, the USA had the ability to outspend every single country around the world militarily, so that they had a military that was stronger than all the militaries around the world combined. That put them in a very powerful position, which stopped countries from actually developing anything to go against the petrodollar, because they were in fear. The fact that the Brics countries have stepped forward and are now stating that they're going to be developing a currency, a world reserve currency, in competition to the petrodollar is so massive, guys. It shows the end of the deep state. They are literally on their last legs. There's almost nothing left they can do besides maybe try to impose some draconian lockdowns, which may happen, but I don't believe they'll even manage to get that right. Guys, we are getting very, very, very close to all of this ending, and everything, Jasara, asset-backed currencies, and everything, the return of Donald Trump. The world as we know it is going to change so positively. You can calm down, you can relax. Things are really, really hotting up positively for all of humanity.